Welcome, Theosophy and Kabbalah, where the twain meet. The word theosophy comes from the Greek theos, meaning God or divine, and sophia, meaning wisdom and knowledge. It represents divine wisdom and encompasses the principles and teachings of spirituality that have been passed down throughout the ages. This includes the Theosophy of Judaism, or the divine wisdom of Judaism through the Kabbalah. There's a remarkable similarity between the Theosophical and Kabbalistic views on the spiritual makeup of a human being, as well as the origin of life and how to open to and experience the divine within. Kabbalah means received. This is receiving the divine light of the infinite, or En Sof, by opening your heart. It is very extensive and includes things that I won't be able to cover during this talk, such as techniques for reading the texts, saying the prayers, breathing exercises, and other rituals, gematria, the study of the hidden meaning of the Hebrew alphabet, which is quite extensive, magic, divination, the use of talisman, and palmistry and its summary of the soul, or chiromancy. To start it off, I'd like to share with you a series of symbols that Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, one of the founders of the Theosophical Society, described in her major work, The Secret Doctrine. Blavatsky wrote that she could see an ancient manuscript clairvoyantly, or in her mind's eye, that was made of palm leaves and had black pages. The first page looked like this: a white circle on a black background. This represents the unity from which we all proceed and return. And a circle's perfect for this because there's no beginning or end. Each point on the circle is the same distance from the center. And then Blavatsky writes about Pascal quoting Hermes Trismegistus: God is a sphere whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. And Blavatsky defined this as the one life, the eternal, the invisible, yet omnipresent, without beginning or end, unconscious, yet absolute consciousness, unrealizable, the one self-existing reality. So I'd like to emphasize she's saying unrealizable and unspeakable. God, or this power, cannot be defined with words. And then in Genesis, it's described as darkness was upon the face of the deep. And this is the Holy Bible of the Christians and the Hebrew Bible. And this is referred to as ayin. In Hebrew, it means nothing, no thing. And En Sof, or En Sof, and that means no limit or boundless. So this is equivalent to Blavatsky's one life. Then the second page of the manuscript, the circle has a point in the center. And in Genesis, it says, and God said, let there be light. And there was light. This is Ein Sof or limitless light, or infinite light. And this is the start of manifestation after nothingness. The third page of the manuscript looks like this, where the diameter is drawn horizontally. And this is the divine feminine. Then the next page has a diameter that's vertical, and it's the divine masculine. And in the stanzas of Dijon, which Blavatsky writes about in The Secret Doctrine, it's described as mother and father, the masculine and feminine. And when the circle disappears, it represents physical manifestation. the fall of mankind in the Garden of Eden. So this is falling into matter on the physical plane. And then in the stanzas, darkness vanished and was no more. It disappeared in its own essence, the body of fire and water, of father and mother. So the white symbols correspond to the Kabbalist's three highest planes. Ion, no thing. This is called beingness by Helena Petrovna Blavatsky. En Sof, or limitless, infinite, also En Sof, or an Ein Sof Ur, limitless light. And then on this tree of life, Eliphas Levi put Ein Sof, and Ein Sof Ur at the very top above Keter. Now I'm going to give you some general statements about the tree of life before I go into it in more detail. To continue, a similarity exists between Kabbalah and the Theosophical teachings in the levels of consciousness within a human being. And we'll look at what Theosophy teaches, then its correspondence to the Kabbalistic tree of life. So Atman at the top is the one life that Blavatsky defined, and it's the absolute or God. And then Buddhi is the entire field of intuition. And then it gets more and more dense into physical. The manas plane, that's both the higher mind and the lower mind. The higher mind is Buddhi manas, using our intuition. And then kama manas is our everyday mind as we go about our lives and take care of our business. Kama is the desire body or the emotions. Prana is within the body, and that's the vitality and the energy coming off and with circulating within the body. And it's also called Qi in China or Ki in Japan. You may have heard about Reiki, which is the universal energy. This corresponds to the Kabbalistic tree of life, with Keter being the white circle on the top, and that's Atman. And then the gray and the black spheres are Kokma and Bina, the intuitional plane. Kesed and Gevura are the blue and the red, and that's the manasic plane, or the mind, higher mind. Tiferet is brown, and that's Kama in the center. Netsac and Hod are green and orange, and they represent prana, or can be equivalent to prana in the body. Yesod is the etheric, and Malkut is the physical body, and that's shown at the very bottom with the four colors. The tree of life is the main symbol of Kabbalah. It contains 10 spheres or sephirot, which serve as the pathway of energy coming from the infinite or En Sof to the physical plane, and then its return to God or the higher self. Just like to explain a little pronunciation about sephirot. It has a T sound where the T and H are. This is similar to the feminine name of Esther. The H is not pronounced with TH. The Kabbalistic view of creation is depicted as a lightning flash, as the path of manifestation. Now, it's not quick like lightning, and it comes down throughout the sephirot. These are called the 10 emanations of God, and each sephira, now that's singular for sephirot, is denser and denser in its materialization. Note, the flash of lightning was coined by Rabbi Isaac Luria in the 16th century, and he wrote the Book of Concealment about the Zohar, the Book of Splendor, which was written down by Moses de Leon in the 13th century. And references to Rabbi Isaac Luria and his writings are called Lurianic. So the tree of life also these levels of consciousness, the tree of life is the path of manifestation, and they correspond to the chakras in the human body. So the crown chakra is the top with Keter. That's the top, or the seventh chakra. The sixth chakra is the pituitary or the brow chakra, and that's Kokma and Binah. The fifth chakra is the throat chakra, and that's Kesed and Gevura or Gevura. This is the intuition and the higher mind. The fourth chakra, the heart, is Tiferet in the middle. And the third chakra is the navel chakra, and that's Prana, Netsac and Hod. And then that's the emotions and the everyday mind. The second chakra is the generative organs, or Yesod, the sacral. And then the root chakra is the base of the spine, and that's Malkut. The tree of life also has pillars with it. You can see the white pillar on the right and the gray pillar on the left. These demonstrate the duality in our world. There has to be a contrast on the physical plane. We just can't live in divine light. The contrasts make our world known. There are shades around us. We can see color with it. As the spiritual light of En Sof comes down the tree of life, it starts with Keter into Kokma on the right-hand pillar, and that's the gray with Kokma. Now, that's the outgoing force of En Sof. The light is expanding and extending outward and is considered positive and masculine. And it's called the white pillar, or the pillar of mercy. Then the left-hand pillar, so as Kokma moves over to the black one of Binah, that's called the black pillar, the feminine pillar, and it isn't black and negative, it's just the feminine, which contains the spirit. So the left hand, or Binah, contains its energy, shapes and guides it so it can be used. So there's a concentration of the light, and it's referred to as negative, as I said, but it's just the opposite polarity. The outer sephirot are balanced by the middle pillar, which is called the way of return, leading to union with the higher self, or the infinite. The world cannot exist on abundant love from the infinite alone, the pillar of mercy, or structure from the left-hand pillar. It needs both the middle pillar and the outer two. And the middle pillar is the balance between them, leading to wisdom. So moving to the tree of life, Keter is at the top, and it's the crown, and that's Atman. And it begins manifestation into the 9 sephirot below. And it's equivalent to the circle, the white circle on the black background. The second is Kokma, and it represents divine wisdom. This is the father, and in the stanzas of Dijon, it's the father of father and mother, and it's the let there be light in Genesis. This represents the Buddhic plane along with Binah, the Sephira opposite it. Now, just a comment, Kokma has the pronunciation with a guttural sound, Chokma, but it's hard for English-speaking people to do that, so Kokma with the K sound is just fine. Then Binah is across from it, labeled understanding, and Binah takes the abstract outpouring wisdom of Kokma in order for distinctions to be made and for us to grasp concepts. It restricts the divine light and concentrates it. It's intuitive understanding and logical reasoning. It makes form for the male outgoing spirit. Binah is the divine womb that gives birth to the rest of the Sephirot. Then I'd like to share with you about Da'at. Now, it's the hidden Sephirot. It's not part of the 10. At the end of one's evolution, Da'at is the accumulation of all of our experiences that results in gnosis, or buddhi manas, purified wisdom. It's the experience of God in a human being. At that point, the lowest Sephira, Malkut, is raised to Da'at. And this is at the level of the master, or it's the human monad in nirvana. Then Da'at is part of the triangles, or the sigal. So you can see it forms a triangle with Kokma, Binah, and Tiferet. This triangle points downward to flow energy into Malkut. The very top triangle points upward, and that's the Trinity, from which all manifestation proceeds. And it emanates the lower 7 Sephirot, which constitute the world of matter. The lower triangles point down to Malkut, and you can see this other picture with the Trinity with the turquoise colored spheres. Then the first triangle, or the seagull pointing downward, is lined there. And then the next triangle pointing downward is in green. And then the red, no, it's the hot pink with Netsac, Hod, and Yesod, and then Malkut. That's the physical body. And they're all nourishing the physical body. And then we have this other set of colored triangles. Now there's many more triangles there, which I won't be able to get into, but you can see it's all flowing energy down. The next Sephira on the tree of life is Chesed, and it's the outflowing love from En Sof in loving kindness, along with support and sustenance. This is the plane of Manas and includes Buddhi Manas, the intuitional mind. Then next we have Gevura or Gabura. It's also okay to say that way, and that's strength. So Gevura is feminine and provides the overflowing love of Chesed with form and structure in justice, law, and judgment. Gevura harnesses the generosity of Chesed to make it so that it can be used to regulate it. If there's too much Chesed or mercy, one may be taken advantage of. On the other hand, an unbalanced Gevura indicates selfishness or fear, where you hold on to what you have and you won't give it away. And they're balanced by Tiferet, and that's beauty, the beauty of compassion. This is the heart. So Chesed, Gevura, and Tiferet are the higher mind and Buddhi Manas. However, Tiferet can also be lowered and link up with our everyday world and represent our heart's desires. And this is when we're living in our daily lives. Then we have Netsac, which is victory, representing the emotions and the instincts to accomplish whatever we need to do. It's the oomph and the aspiration for us to master something. So if you want to climb a mountain, the desire to accomplish it comes from Netsac. Then the orange one on the other side is Hod, glory or splendor, and it represents the intellect and the concrete mind. It concentrates the energy of Netsac and utilizes reason and common sense. So if Netsac is the desire to climb the mountain, Ho is the organizing and planning part, which calls upon its perseverance to accomplish it. Hod musters discipline and allows human beings to keep going forward and have hope in the future. Then we have Yesod, means foundation, and that's the procreative power or reproductive power. And it's also our ability to establish relationships, including one with a teacher, a friend, a parent, or a mentor. Then we have Malkut. That's the kingdom, which is the physical body, which is the receptacle of all the forces passed down through the other 9 Sephirot. In climbing the mountain, Malkut is the vehicle that gets us up there. As I mentioned in the lightning flash, God's divine light creates the world and moves down the 10th to the 10th Sephira on the physical plane. It moves from Keter, the white, the crown, to the right into Kokma, abstract wisdom, the outgoing energy of En Sof, the right pillar. Then it's concentrated to move across to Binah, the black, which is logical reasoning and understanding. Then it drops down to the blue, Kesed, that's loving kindness or mercy, and that's the outgoing. Then it moves across to Gevura, which is the strength and judgment with the mind. Then it moves down to Teferet, the brown in the heart, the beauty of compassion. The next lower level is Netsac, green, which is our emotions. And it's called victory when our feelings and desire activate an endeavor. Then it moves laterally into Hod, the orange, which is glory, our thinking mind. Then it drops to Yesod, the purple, which is the procreative force. Then down to Malkut, the kingdom, the physical body. As God's divine light moves down each Sephira, the divine light is stronger than the dense, more physical Sephirot can handle. Each Sephira then explodes into a myriad of shards, like a broken crystal ball. And it's called the breaking of the vessels, so creation can take place. And this is Rabbi Isaac Luria again. The shattered Sephirot scatter the light and make everything in the manifested world, with the shards making up our physical bodies. This concept of shards creating the physical plane has been inspiration for architecture around the world. This picture of Sydney, Australia's Opera House, designed by Jorn Utzon, was inspired by the crystal shards and other things that occur in nature, like the sails of a ship or the peels of an orange. In his architecture, the 14 roof sections, when combined, make a sphere. Also, this picture of Daniel Libeskind's architecture, he designed the Manchester, England's Imperial War Museum, and they're based on the shards of the broken crystal. You can see another picture there. And then some other designs. Quite a designer there. And then this one in London, England, Renzo Piano's The Shard. And you can see it at night, and then a close-up. The shards of the crystal sephirot are also called husks or shells or klipot, and they represent the form of our physical body. And the divine light of the infinite is said to be trapped within. Then we, as human beings, need to undergo many lifetimes of reincarnation to learn to interact from the divine En Sof. We grow with each incarnation. And the cycles of reincarnation are called Gilgulim, or Gilgul, meaning cycle or wheel. And this is similar to Theosophy, which speaks of reincarnation being needed as human beings evolve. In order for physical life to exist, the divine light of the infinite must be reduced or stepped down with each sephira so it can flow into the next, more physical plane. The current, so to speak, has to be reduced, and it's similar to an electrical current in a house. If you hook up a current that has too high of a voltage for the wires, the metal in the wires will cause the plastic to melt. And the heat will cause this in the first place, with the metal will melt with the plastic. And so you can see the burning of the plastic coating. So the Sephirot can't handle the intense light of the divine. So Zinzum from Isaac Luria, rabbi, takes place where God contracts himself in order for life to exist on the physical plane. As with Theosophy, Kabbalah maintains that the perfect purpose of existence is for the soul to descend into this world and then to ascend back to En Sof. The ascent back to the infinite is symbolized by Nehushtan, the serpent of wisdom, moving up the tree of life. He winds his head until it rests beside Keter at the top. We humans, as represented by Nehushtan, must develop each sephira until we attain full wisdom, which is symbolized by the snake, a common symbol of wisdom. Nehushtan, the snake, is the same snake in the Ouroboros, where he holds his tail in his mouth and forms a circle. And this is symbolic of the symbol of unity, which is the white circle on the black background. And it's also on the TS emblem given to us by Blavatsky. The snake is used as a metaphor because it sheds its skin, which represents a new birth of consciousness with one's increased knowledge and wisdom. And then the snake slithers on the ground and hides in the long grasses, just like our divine wisdom can be hidden within. Then, unfortunately, lastly, like the snake, we humans can be poisonous to others in how we treat them. So you can see the snake Nehushtan must start at the bottom of the tree of life as he develops Malkut. We must learn how to take care of our bodies and not hurt others with how we treat them. As we gain experience, we, or Nehushtan, develop unselfishness to help not only ourselves, but others too. In Yesod, he learns to control his sexual urges. In Netsac and Hod, he works on his emotions and mind, and he develops his heart and his heart desires into Firat, so he can extend love toward others as well for our families. This all broadens our Chesed and Geburah, where we extend loving kindness and our sense of justice for all, which in turn enables a development of intuition in Binah and Kokma as we rise to live with the unity of all of life. And that's represented by Keter. So this intricate picture, the symbols on the right represent the the chakras. First of all, at the bottom, there's 4 petals on the lotus. Then there's 6, 10, 12, and then 16. And then at the top, there's the 1,000th petal lotus, or the 1,000 facets on the diamond soul in the Theosophical voice of the silence. The planets are represented on the trees, sephirot, or the signs of the zodiac. You can see them on the pillars. The swastikas represent involution and evolution. The right-hand pillar is outgoing and the energy is in a clockwise fashion. The left-hand pillar is a counterclockwise swastika as evolution occurs. The far left side, the symbols are the 4 elements of air with the upward triangle with a line through it, fire with the upward pointing triangle alone, earth with the downward triangle with a line through it, and then at the bottom, water has the downward triangle with the line through it, and then the earth is at the bottom with the line, and water has no line, sorry. The pentacle at the bottom is the encircled pentagram, which is an ancient symbol referring to many things like the 4 elements, with the 5th being the spirit or the circle around it. And it can also represent a human being. All along, we human beings have difficulties and challenges we must be aware of in the choices we make. If we are selfish and hurt others or make wrong choices, we need to repent through following the 10 commandments or the mitzvot that's on the escalator, such as not killing. Now, these are the 10 commandments: not killing, not lying, taking the Lord's name in vain. So if we violate the 10 commandments, we need to ask for forgiveness or teshuvah. Then we can transform ourselves and heal and atone for our actions in the world. Wrong choices are represented by the concept of klipa, or klifat, or klipat, which refers to the potential for evil in the husks or peelings which can block the divine within us. It's like the human being's defenses of fight, flight, and freeze. As we turn away from those, just like the husk or peeling is thrown away, we can transform our behaviors so that we're unselfish. The realm of Sitra Akra means the other side of holiness. And this is Rabbi Isaac Luria again. And it's represented by the tree of death, which shows the reverse side of the tree of life, its evil twin. Each sephira, it has a negative side, such as anger coming from the emotions in Netsac, or hurting someone physically in Malkut. The physical body is that aspect, or misusing sex, the negative side of Yasud. To evolve, we as the serpents need to wind up the tree of death and then into the tree of life to the top, or Keter En Sof. So you can see this beautiful symbol all the way up from the bottom. The tree of life and the tree of death are also symbolized here. You can see the negative side of a human being on the lower right with the hangman, the tarot figure representing selfishness. On the upper right side, the snake on the cross represents wisdom. The 5-pointed star on the tree of death is the upside down pentagram, or Satan, the goat of Mendes. That's the goat of lust that attacks heaven. The pentacle is in the upper, it's the 6-pointed star in the upper tree of life. And inside that is the all-seeing eye of God. And then in the bottom, we have each sephira in the tree of death has an evil archangel or a demon associated with it. And they're highlighted in this picture. 2 of them are, and these are Samiel and Lilith, who are the counterparts to Adam and Eve. Samael is Hod, or the emotional mental part of the human being, and Lilith is the reproductive sephira, Yesod. Samael is reputed to have planted the tree of knowledge of good and evil in the Garden of Eden and engineered the fall of Adam and Eve into manifestation, with the snake tempting him to eat the apple. So to fill out the story a little bit, God created Adam from dust from the ground and breathed the breath of life into him. Then he created Eve from Adam's rib. God puts Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden and says that they can eat anything they want. Now, this Garden of Eden is basically, and God said, let there be light. Everything is magical and beautiful. But God warns them, you cannot eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, because if you do, you will die. But the serpent tempts Eve with the forbidden fruit and promises Adam and Eve that if they eat the fruit, they won't die, but be immortal. Now, this represents Adam and Eve coming into physical manifestation. In other words, having the knowledge of good and evil. But they will have the immortal spirit of God within them. Samael on the tree of death is the one who planted the tree of knowledge of good and evil. He therefore was banished and cursed by God. He's reputed to be the one who takes the souls away from human beings. In Gnosticism, Samael makes people blind, and Christians refer to fallen angels in the same way, and some myths say that they are to destroy sinners, and Samael is the chief of the destroying angels. A human being's work is to break down the negativity in the tree of death that are represented by the human beings surrounding the divine spark so they can shine forth. This takes place by tikkun, which means repair. This is repairing the world by eliminating the negativity in the hus, so Shekinah, the divine presence, can be restored. So helping others is an example of repair, while selfishness or expressing anger is a further breaking of the vessels. The Tree of Life was creatively illustrated through this picture drawn by Robert Flood, the English Paracelsian physician, astrologer, mathematician, and Kabbalist. He drew the Tree of Life upside down with the Sephirot in the middle, the same places, but with the roots in heaven, because human beings have their roots there. Our starts are in heaven. The roots represent Keter or Atman, and all the branches and the trunk are all the Sephirot. And then the leaves or the evergreen needles or fronds on a fern represent the physical body. The four worlds of Kabbalah are also very easily shown on Robert Flood's picture. So the roots represent the world of Atzilut, in the Kabbalah, and that's the world of emanation. Then the trunk and the branches are the Sephirot for the world of Atzilut. Excuse me, I've mixed up the slides, one behind. So the roots are Atzilut, Atman. The trunk is Birya, and that's booty, or Bria. The branches are the Yetzirah, the world of formation, and that's manifestation through the divine beings of the angelic kingdom. And then the leaves or the fronds or whatever are the physical body, Asiya. And it's the perfect time for me to introduce to you the 5 expressions. Oh, there's a picture I have of an upside down Christmas tree representing, for Christians, Christ on the cross, but this is an example where the roots are in heaven, following Robert Flood's drawing. And then now it's a perfect time to introduce the 5 expressions of the soul. So the Kabbalistic 4 worlds are reflected in the middle of the table, and they have added at the top En Sof or God. Then the levels of consciousness are on the right with Atman. And then the 5 expressions of the soul starts with Yekida, and that's En Sof and Atman. It's the spark of the divine in all manifestation. Then Kaya is the spiritual realm, which begins the world of emanation. And it corresponds to Atzilut, and this is the archetypal plane, the level. Neshama is the world of creation. Neshama means breathing, and when we are meditating or trying to get in touch with our higher self, and also when we're reading or studying spiritual works, it's referred to as intellectual respiration. So neshama is also the causal body, which manifests with reincarnation. So ruach is the world of formation. Now ruach signifies air, breath, breathing, and spirit. So in the creation story in Genesis in the Bible, human beings are created by God breathing the breath of life into Adam. And this is ruach, or the one breath of which we all are a part. And just a note, the word spirituality comes from the Latin root spiro, which means breath. And again, it expresses the oneness with the one breath. Ruach is at the level of Yetzirah and it's Kama Manas, the everyday mind and the emotions. Then Nefesh is the world of action, and that's the human body and its life force, the world of action. The interplay between Judaism and Christianity is shown in the Lord's Prayer. So, and I'm not going to say the whole Lord's Prayer, but the ending part, for thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. Not all Jews pray the Lord's Prayer, but some of the wording comes from the Hebrew Bible, the first book of Chronicles, where King David is speaking of the grandeur of the Lord, or En Sof. And he says, thine, O Lord, is the greatness and the power and the glory and the victory and the majesty. Thine is the kingdom, O Lord, and thou art exalted as head above all. So you can see in the Lord's Prayer, for thine is the kingdom, is the Malkut at the bottom, and the power is Netsac, and the glory is Hod forever and ever. Amen. So as John Algeo, one of the presidents of the National Theosophical Society in the US, he gave some lectures on this. He calls this a Kabbalistic formula incorporated into the Lord's Prayer. So one last concept I'd like to share with you is the Tetragrammaton. And this is, I want to make it easy to understand. So Tetragrammaton comes from the word tetragram, meaning 4 letters, and that's the YHVH. And that refers to the name of God. And in Hebrew, it's spelled backward. So on the right, you see the very far right looks like a short little line, apostrophe, and that's the yud, and I have it down below. That's the first letter. Then hey looks like an N. Next to that, to the left of it is vav. and that's a line, but it goes below the line of writing. And then He is the final letter. It looks like an N. Then I have it representing a person. So the Yud is the head. The first He is the shoulders and the arms. This letter Vav is the torso, and then the legs is the last He. So it means, Yud means God or the Atman. He is the breath of God or the spirit of God in behold. And it looks like the letter N, and it's the fifth letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So it's an intake of breath. Aha sound, and then with satisfaction. Now that's behold and He. Then Vav simply means and then the final He is the physical body, and that's putting God into your heart and actions in your life on the physical plane. So YHVH represents the holy name of God, which cannot be said because God cannot be put into words. As Blavatsky said, it's unspeakable and unknowable. It can't be expressed. For Jews, God's name cannot be pronounced. It's unutterable. It's too sacred to be spoken. Hashem may be used, meaning the name. Jehovah and Yahweh have been used, but they're not a correct pronunciation. Within the Tetragrammaton, the last letter He has some really interesting symbolism. It refers to the efforts needed to bring God into our lives and our actions. The He looks like an N, and it has a short vertical line on the left. That's the Yud. And then the second part that's curved looks like a 7 in a way, is a Dalet, the fourth letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And that means of. Dalet means of. So Yud and Dalet mean to live of God. Additionally, the place, I've also got some, let's stick with this slide. Additionally, the place on the left side of the He that is severed is that God is separated from the physical world, and it's our obligation and of obligation of every Jew to attach the Yud again to the Dalet, to live with God in thought, speech, and action. In other words, our thoughts, emotions, and physical actions with our bodies. So speech is not meaning emotions directly. It has two meanings, that of the heart and of the lips. The symbolism goes that whatever comes from your lips comes from your heart at the beginning. So the teaching says that we must keep God in our hearts so that our speech can help heal the world. To do this, we follow the mitzvot, plural, or the mitzvah, the 10 commandments, by doing good deeds. Then En Sof is revealed, or the spark of the infinite on the physical plane reality. Here's where we have another meaning to the final letter He. It's vertical right side. You can see it where the white background shows the Dalet more clearly. It has a straighter right side, and it represents a king or God on his throne. And it kind of looks like a throne. There's a warring nation called Amalek, which severs God from the throne, from the Yud on the left. The Yud is severed from the Dalet. So living a holy life will restore the king or God to the throne. And this is done in thought, speech, and action. This is accomplished by, this is thought, speech, and action. This is accomplished by bringing chesed, or loving kindness, and gevurah, justice, into tiferet, your heart, and Netsac, and into your emotions in Netsac, and into Hod, your concrete mind, and into Yesod and Malkut. The Tetragrammaton, or YHVH, also represents the four worlds of Kabbalah. The Yod is Atzilut, He, Bria, Vav, Yetzirah, and He is the physical world, Asiya. And it also can represent the four elements of nature: fire, air, water, and earth. To close, I'd like to share an interesting part of Jewish culture that corresponds with the symbolism in the tree of life. The menorah is a 7-branch candelabra with 7 lights or candles, and it represents the tree of life. The central candle in the middle is Keter, and that's the white sophia at the top. The next 2 candles are Kokma and Binah. Then Da'at is below Keter, and it is the top crossing point for the 2 candles where the metal crossing crosses the center pole. Then the next 2 candles are Kesed and Gevurah, and then Tiferet is the crossing point. Then we have Hod and Netsac, which are the outermost candles. And then the Yesod is the crossing point for those 2. And then below that, we have the physical body, Malkut. Lastly, to point out the additional meanings of the tree of life, it's also associated with the tarot, and on all the different pathways between the sephira, the sephirot have a tarot card on them. Each sephira has a archangel or angel associated with it, and it also has a planet from astrology with each sephira. So hopefully with this presentation, you all feel inspired to eliminate klipat from your lives, or the blocks to the divine, and to live with teshuvah, repentance, in your heart for things that you regret, and to perform tikkun, to repair or heal aspects of your lives and the world, so that Shekinah, the divine presence, can shine through, so we can become the wise serpent moving up the tree of life, and where we can rest our heads next to Keter, the crown. Thank you.